Well, metaphors and containers for meaning are really important to me, and we worked a lot with that in the 2 workshops. And I like imagining that it's really crucial for us to acknowledge the things that most inspired us, that most form our identity. And you know, it's a lifelong project and it's ongoing, but I think there's core things, certainly for us as young artists, or as young artist citizens in a way, that really inform that. And for me, it's really important, as I catch my breath from wild queer conception performance, to acknowledge that my own personal lineage. And I like to imagine, I grew up in Southern California, and I moved to New York City after my one year of college in the Northwest at UW. So I'm back in the most traumatic year of my life, here in Washington State. But shortly after that, I went off to New York City to claim my artistic fortune and try to overthrow the government. And I had a little kind of end of the 70s avocado green plastic suitcase. And I want to just mark the 3 things that most informed my work, and how in some ways I began to shape these performances around gay identity, around personal narrative, around how the personal collides with challenges, moves the political. And for me, the first thing I would really have to acknowledge, and it's really core to me, we were talking about this some this afternoon in the workshop this morning. For me, it's all of the inspiration I received. As a little gay kid, as a little gay boy, what really transformed me was the dozens and dozens of performances I saw at the Women's Building in downtown Los Angeles, which was really the center for performance praxis, for feminist and lesbian feminist performance praxis in this country. Just all these extraordinary artists, and there were many other crucial feminist art spaces in our country in the 70s and into the 80s. But the Women's Building in LA was one of the biggest, and it was really focused on performance and installation, and it transformed my sense of what art is. Suddenly the idea that we can tell our stories, that the materials of the things we dream about, the materials in our homes, in our kitchens, so extraordinary to me that though I was there as a little gay boy pretending to be a lesbian, with a lot of success, because I looked like a little tiny baby dyke. It was very popular then. But what it gave me, and I love that this happens all the time, we receive emboldening, not from people exactly like us, but sometimes people different than us. And for me, my identity as a gay male artist was deeply informed by feminist artists. It's just one of those tips to the hats of the surprising way the world organizes itself. It's often actually across gender, across race, across able-bodied issues and stuff, and disability arts, that sometimes all of these spaces are really, the person not the same as us is actually who challenges us to claim ourselves. So that takes up a good third of my avocado green suitcase. Also in there is, I was in the worst punk rock band in human history. And we could fight it out. I'm sure some of you would. Those of you from Olympia. But we were so bad, we only had 2 of the required 3 chords. And a blind bass player. But my boyfriend in high school was the lead singer, and we only did songs based on the text of the Marquis de Sade. So we were an excellent high school punk rock art band. But what this gave me, and it's not contradictory, it's not oppositional, even with all its yangy, punky, male, testosterone-y, breaking things on stage kind of stuff. It actually complemented and added to and continued the conversation of this deep sense of agency I was getting from all these performances I was seeing at the Women's Building around personal identity, around the conversation of our private selves and our public identities. It taught me we can't wait till we have all 3 chords. We can't wait. We jump on the table now, try to get arrested, make a loud sound. Make the music we can make today. We'll make some other music tomorrow. And this is talking about this very specifically also because of the exploration I'm seeing happen here. People leaping out of their most comfortable ground of the kind of artists they are and taking on other kinds of challenges in that 2 chords hoping for 3 chords punk rock way. And finally, the last third of it, there'd be many other things, but these are strong materials. The last third would be all of the inspiration and challenge I received as a high school kid around the complete evolving and emergence of lesbian and gay civil rights. It's one of the primary human rights challenges in our country for me, which matches kind of my high school years at the end of the 70s. And my high school hero was, of course, Harvey Milk, who I sent all of my after-school lawn mowing job money to when I was 16 for his multiple campaigns. And I got a real lesson about our country, of course. This is the strongest pedagogy I received as a young queer kid, is that my hero got his brains blown out by a right-wing cop, along with the mayor of San Francisco. As we all know from two Academy Award-winning movies, multiple plays, an opera, the assassination of Harvey Milk, the first openly elected gay man. The first openly elected gay person was the lesbian Elaine Noble in Massachusetts. Just thought I'd put that in. She often gets forgotten in the scrum. But what this gave me, it can seem like a negative pedagogy, but it actually meant, okay, the stakes are high. We are still living in an extremely dangerous country. The last time I took the ferry to Bainbridge Island 5 years ago, my husband Alistair and I were queer bashed and threatened to be thrown off the Bainbridge ferry on the last ferry of the night. It was one of the most terrifying. The ferry was really deserted. We were told we were so happy. Oh, we're going to Bainbridge. Stay with our lesbian friends. So just even at that moment, and I hadn't taken the ferry since 5 years ago, and I took it on my way here, so it's been thinking about that. But those are powerful things to remember. The stakes are high, and the violence that is assembled is formidable frequently still. So within all that space, for me, clearly, it emboldened to tell story, bring it forward, find the engagement between personal narrative, the joy of wild performance energy, like our horrible punk rock band, but also connecting it to political practice. How does our creativity, how does our artistic mission kind of conversation with the world, which for me is, I know it's not important for every artist, but I like putting it out there that I think it's a conversation to make sure you're having. How does this work connect with the world and potentially maybe make the world a little less screwed up? So just before I dive into the next performance, I'm clearly one of many, thousands and thousands of artists who felt similar materials around the claiming of identity, of the embrace of community-based performance practice or other kinds of artistic practice to really charge and widen the franchise of whose materials get expressed, whose story gets told, and of course throughout the kind of multicultural widening of the franchise in our country in the 80s and 90s, which is a really rich period in response to the constriction of the newly elected sort of theocracy in the Reagan-Bush years. But suddenly all of these new materials coming forward from communities of color, from queer artists, from artists exploring disability. Suddenly there's a homeless people's performance art ensemble, the Los Angeles Poverty Department, LAPD, which is the most widely regarded kind of performance group that addresses homelessness and has transformed literally hundreds and hundreds of lives of the homeless people that John Maltby has worked with. So within this space, there's suddenly this really exciting, rich new landscape for our work to really be deeply connected to society, to our neighborhoods, to community, to our overlapping and multiple identities, to our efforts sometimes to connect who we are to other people, almost as kind of artist citizen ambassadors, which I find really exciting work, especially around addressing, racism and homophobia and other kinds of inequality. So clearly it's not a surprise our government started to bash back. And I want to talk about this really briefly because it's certainly one of the ways I am most pigeonholed in kind of contemporary American art history is as being one of the so-called NEA4, National Endowment for the Arts, for the 4 solo performance artists, myself, Karen Finley, Holly Hughes, and John Fleck, who President Bush the Daddy violated his oath of office in the US Constitution and took away our unanimously recommended solo performance grants purely because of the content.